In the classroom, I got to ask the question about how taller athletes can compete in a sport where there are movements that shorter athletes have an advantage on. So for example, handstand push-ups, a shorter athlete with shorter arms is going to have lesser range of motion than a taller athlete with longer arms. How do you compete when the speed of that movement is going to be slower for a taller athlete? So I'm going to dig into some principles to apply for training to be faster. But before I get into that, I wanted to kind of just make sure that when people are thinking about this, if you're a taller athlete, you have to make sure that you have an appropriate mind space or an appropriate thought process about your athletic development. And thinking of that as an excuse is not going to necessarily set you up for success. So instead, try to look at any sort of reasoning that could make you a little bit more confident in your approach to get faster as a taller athlete. For example, Brent Fikowski is a pretty tall athlete who's had a lot of success in the sport. So it is possible to be a taller athlete and compete. So you have to figure out what your competitive advantage is. In reality, if you are taller and you're going to have to do a movement against a shorter athlete, if you have the same speed and they have lesser range of motion, they are going to be faster. But I oftentimes see athletes that are taller using that as an excuse or using it as a justification not to want to compete. And I don't think that's going to set you up to enjoy your process. So first thing is make sure that you have a good headspace with which how you're approaching your sport. Now, that being said, if you are trying to improve your movement speed, there's a couple things that you can do with regards to your training to make that happen. The first thing is that you have to have the appropriate intent in your training session. You have to go into a training session where you're trying to be fast with the intention that you're moving at your fastest possible pace. Very often, people will get into a training session, let's say it's 10 sets of 10 thrusters at 100% speed, rest 2 minutes between. Knowing that you have to do 100 thrusters over the course of the session, people are subconsciously or maybe consciously pacing their movement speed. When it comes to speed development, every little millisecond will matter, and all of your output and all of your intention needs to be placed on moving as fast as you possibly can so that incrementally over time you are moving faster with your specific body type. So intention is always going to matter. That would be principle number one as you're approaching training, trying to get faster as a taller athlete, but that also applies to shorter athletes as well. Principle number two would be movement and your ability to move well and have good tissue quality. One of the keys to moving fast is the ability to relax a muscle joint, which sometimes is counterintuitive because people think of speed as something that they need to tense up and contract really fast to be able to do. But if you're actually going through a range of motion, let's say, for example, you're going through a squat, in order to change direction quickly, you need to be able to relax the muscle joint on the opposite side of that joint so that you can move really quickly through that range of motion. In order to do that and to decelerate really quickly, you need to be very flexible in those end ranges and then also have the mobility and control to apply a lot of force in those deep end ranges. So you can apply movement-based practices and ensure that you have good tissue quality if you're trying to move fast. So that'd be principle number two. And then principle number three would be lesser volume and more rest. If you want to get faster, doing a ton of volume and making yourself very tired is not the way to move faster. You want to have training sessions instead of doing, like the example I said, 10 sets of thrusters, 10 sets of 10 thrusters on 2 minutes rest. That would be more conducive to moving faster per set than if you do 10 rounds for time of 10 thrusters and 10 toes to bar. Inherently, that workout has no rest. You're combining fatigue signals and you're moving straight through. So if you actually look at the total speed of those thrusters over the course of that training session, it's going to be slower than had you rested. So you want to make sure that you rest in your training sessions so that you can maximize speed. And then also on an aggregate level with your training program, you want to lower the total volume so that you have more energy per session to move as fast as possible and you're not bringing fatigue into the session. So I think if you apply those 3 training principles and you have a good headspace with regards to getting faster, as a taller athlete, you can excel in the sport even with some disadvantages in some of the movements. Good luck with your training.
What if you're 7'4"?
If you're 7'4", you're probably shit out of luck.
Oh, man.
It's a wrap, you know what I'm saying? Your boy Project Pata in this thing, man. Hey, look, man, thank y'all for watching Training Think Tank's YouTube channel. Y'all hit that motherfucking subscribe button, you know what I'm saying? So y'all go ahead, man. Thank y'all for watching the channel, you know what I'm saying? Hit that motherfucking subscribe button. Let it be known, what it be known, what it be known, you know what I'm saying? Pata.